Hey everyone, it's Peter from Daydream Nation, the channel that covers all genres of rock. Please don't forget to subscribe. Got my mate, John the Music Nut from America. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Peter. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. I have pitched a show to John at very short notice, and he has risen to the task, and we are going to do a show about pop artists, whether solo or in a band, that are capable of doing a hard rock or metal album, or we would like to see them do a hard rock or metal album. We're just going to pick a couple and give our explanation as to why we think they would be a good fit, hard rock or metal. So, John, take it away with your first pick.
All right, thanks so much, Peter. Now, this is an artist who he is a Renaissance man in music. He could do it all: singing, great musician, excellent songwriter, wonderful engineer, wonderful producer. And he is from Pennsylvania, just like I am. And it's Todd Rundgren. Now, Todd Rundgren, to the mainstream, is most known or best known for his pop hits. Hello, It's Me. We Gotta Get You a Woman. I Saw the Light. Can We Still Be Friends? But he made a lot of great rock songs. This album here is Something Anything. This is from 1972. Now, a lot of this disc has those piano pop songs that you all know and love, a la Carole King. Wonderful songs that could have been hits, big hits, just like Hello, It's Me and I Saw the Light were off this album. Like Cold Morning Light, it wouldn't have made any difference. But there's wonderful rock songs on here too, like side 2, or it would be record 2 here. Black Mariah is just a great slow driving rock song a la early Pink Floyd. Little Red Lights is a scorcher of rock song. He has quite a few good rock songs on here, but one thing I love about this exercise is we could talk about other albums of a artist catalog. This is a later day album by Todd called Arena. Now, this was from 2008. This is his stab at arena rock. And this blends his wonderful pop craftsmanship with great rock songs. And like half the album is great rock pop songs, but some of this stuff is really heavy, hard rock, like songs like Mad, Mercenary, Strike. Strike, when you listen to that, it sounds like an AC/DC song. And I believe I read that on All Music Review, that the chorus goes, strike while the iron is hot. It has those great AC/DC riffs in it. He sings in a much more menacing tone on these rock songs as well. But there's also great pop songs on here like Courage and Weakness. Panic is another wonderful hard rock song with a killer riff. Todd Rundgren could do pretty much anything musically, but if he wanted to go hard rock, if he wanted to go full scale, he certainly could have done it and made a fantastic hard rock album. But I wanted to give some attention to this album because, you know, a lot of people aren't buying new music these days. I mean, a lot, like us diehards are buying some, but this one, I don't even know if this charted, but it's a wonderful album that's worth investigating. So my first pick is Todd Rundgren.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. You've sort of made that sort of compelling.
Thank you.
So you think vocally he would have no issue in projecting his voice over distorted guitars or guitar solos or very heavy bottom end? So that album sort of reinforces the argument that he could easily switch.
He doesn't always sound angelic. When he wants to sound mean and rough and ready, he could do that as well.
Yeah.
He's just, to me, musical talent in the dictionary it's Todd Rundgren. I mean, he's amazing. I have a few of his albums. He's one of these artists that one day I'm just going to go and buy everything he owns, everything he's done. Utopia too. I mean, he's done some great stuff in Utopia as well, and great pop songs in Utopia. But
well, he did work with Meatloaf. He did work with Meatloaf, and that was sort of like pseudo hard rock. I mean, even though it wasn't quite, it was probably a notch below hard rock, but it was getting quite on the cusp. So that's, I guess, another compelling force to the argument that he could easily switch to a hard rock album.
And if you want to talk production there, Peter, he did the New York Dolls debut.
There you go.
There's one of the finest rock albums ever released, in my opinion. Fantastic album.
Yeah. All right. Well done. I like that. I like that a lot. I'm going to go with maybe something a little bit controversial. I'm going to go with the Police. So you look at the Police, you have got one of the finest technical drummers of all time. And he, let's face it, in my opinion, he's the most valuable player in that band, Stuart Copeland. Listen to them live. They are much more heavy and much more progressive and busy than they are on record. I mean, you listen to the Police in their live concert on YouTube, they're out on video. The thing that comes to the fore is the drumming. So that's point one. Point two, I think Sting has got cut through in his vocals that he could sing over distorted guitar, heavy guitar, down-tuned guitar. There are so many imitators of Sting in the 80s. He really had the vocals of pop 80s. You just listen to a lot of the synth pop, a lot of the vocals, but he had enormous vocal projection, vocal range, and I think he had the necessary cut through. And the song that was sort of, I was reflecting on that reinforces my argument is Synchronicity 2, where he's really sort of singing like a banshee. Now, the third part of it is Andy Summer. Andy Summer's sort of got a different sort of feel to his guitar, but if he put a bit of fuzz tone or a bit of distortion or a bit of wah-wah, then it's complete. How would they sound? Maybe like a version of Rush. It might be in that wheelhouse, but I definitely think they could capably go into hard rock. What do you think?
I agree 100%. In fact, I love the Police, and I have that double live album they put out years after they had broken up. And that first disc is from an earlier show from, I don't know if it was the Regatta de Blanc tour or if it was Zenyatta Mandata. That is a great live rock album right there. And on the second disc is from the Synchronicity tour. And that was when it became more Sting's band. And they had a lot of background musicians and vocalists on it. And that's quite fine too. But the rock side, the rock disc is excellent. And the analogy with Rush is perfect. I mean, they both had, Police particularly, had that, they both have that that piece of reggae in their sound, particularly the Police. I mean, the Rush albums from around there, they had little hints of reggae in there too.
Which were probably cribbed from Police. Definitely, Rush were very influenced by the Police and that whole era.
They certainly were. But I mean, Andy Summers isn't a riff guy. He's more of a color. His guitar is there for color, much like Alex Lifeson's was on some of those Rush albums.
And that's where I'm coming from, because Rush are regarded as hard rock. So I think if Andy did a little bit more distortion, a little bit more down tuning, then you get into that sound. Because another thing I want to say, and Sting is a very fine bass player, underrated. His bass playing propels the song along, and him combined in the bottom end with Stuart Copeland is the perfect mix for a hard rock band, especially in a live surround. You just need Andy just to put a little bit of down tune, a little bit of distortion, and I think they would be a perfect fit for hard rock, similar to sort of Rush. That's where I'm coming from.
They had 5 wonderful albums that were all really interesting, and that would have added another dimension to an already fantastic band. I would have loved to have heard that.
Yeah. So if people just think of the hits, listen to some of the deep cuts, but I think the guiding track to my argument, well, it's not an argument, but my case for consideration is Synchronicity 2. So there you go. All right, mate. What's your next choice?
Okay, my next one is going to be, I'm going to do something a little different here. Elton John.
Right.
I'm
intrigued.
Elton John. In my opinion, would he have made a great hard rock album? All you gotta do is listen to this bad boy, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Now, this, along with Bob Dylan's Blonde on Blonde, are my favorite double albums. This album is very eclectic, but the hard rocket songs on here are fantastic. The opener, Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding, is one of my favorite songs, period. The guitar playing in here, the solos are wonderful. The delivery is excellent. It just grabs you by the throat. He still does it live. This is an 11-minute song in its entirety. So when you hear it on album-oriented rock radio, you're going to hear it late night. And that's how it was back in the glory days of AOR as well. But you have other great hard rock songs on here that got some play on AOR, like Gray Seal. Gray Seal it's really led by Elton's wonderful piano work, but that's a great hard rock song with some great guitar work from Jay Johnstone on there. You have All the Girls Love Alice. That is a fantastic rock song. And last but certainly not least, you got Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, which is one of the great anthems, period. I mean, still one of his showstoppers, still does it near the end of his shows to this day. It is a fantastic song. I've never met anyone in my life who does not like Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. You might say a lot of his songs were schmaltzy piano ballads and things like that. You say Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, they're like, oh yeah, that's a good song. He also recorded a lot of other really fine hard rock songs. Some of them were hits like The Bitch Is Back. Some of them were wonderful deep cuts like Elderberry Wine. I think he could have made a great hard rock album. Okay, his vocals aren't near, I mean, even like later on, because when as he aged, and I saw him live 7 years ago, he's more of like a blues shouter these days. His band is still fantastic, but now his voice is still good, but doesn't have that angelic quality like it once had. So if he were to do a hard rock album within the last 10 years or so, I think it would have been very well done, considering his craftsmanship between him and Bernie Taupin. I think they could have pulled it off. Elton John, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, fantastic album.
I love Elton. I'll qualify that. I love early Elton John, and I think that is definitely his finest album. I'm not convinced about the hard rock thing. Hard rock to me is riff, and I think Elton's a bit intricate. He would put honky tonk, he would put different sort of blues lick. I would think he would be rock, but I couldn't see him being in the hard rock space because I think he wouldn't be satisfied. Hard rock is, as I said, when you listen to Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, or Deep Purple, it's riff based.
Yes.
And Elton is piano with instrumentation behind it. So it's sort of like he's pop and there's rock, but I don't think he can simplify his music to just riff, because I think that's part of his nature, that he has to embellish it. He has to put piano augmentation. He has to make it sort of like a fully realized type sound. I think it's that sort of genre to me, I think it would be, I don't know, maybe he'd be underwhelmed. I'm not sure. Do you know where I'm coming from?
I know where you're coming from, but my point would be Funeral of Love Lies Bleeding is led by a great riff, and so is Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, and so is Elderberry Wine. I think he could have did this for a full album. I mean, and had the piano there more as color rather than be the lead part of the song.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. I think he likes to be the lead, and I think that in hard rock, the guitar rules. It's riffage. And I'm not sure that he would stick by the rules of the game, because it's a genre that has very specific rules and it's very riff orientated. And I think that he would be restricted by the rules of hard rock. So that's why I'm not so convinced, but I really appreciate you bringing to the table. But that one I'm not sure about. But he would certainly do a fully blown rock album, but it would have a lot of his vocals, the harmonies, because he loves the Beatles. It'd have that lush vocal harmonies, it'd have that pop sensibility, and a lot of the fully fledged rock sound, but stripping it down to something that's just purely hard rock, I think he would find it too confining, and I'm not sure about that one. Anyway.
Okay, very good.
I'm going to say Miley Cyrus. I think she's the obvious contemporary singer that has got the vocal chops, and she's flirting with it, but she hasn't done the fully fledged rock album as of yet. So I think that's the problem with a lot of contemporary pop artists, that they are sort of controlled by the bean counters and the music of the day. And the music of the day is pop, R&B, hip hop, which is, let's face it, rock music is a bit of a niche genre, and we've just got to face the facts. If you look at the charts, it's not the force that it was. But I can clearly see that Miley's got chops in the rock direction. She's done sort of collaborations with Billy Idol live, Stevie Nicks. She's done a interpretation, which is a fine interpretation of Metallica, Nothing Else Matters. She's easily got the cut through and the vocal chops that she could do this and do a rock album, but I think it's commerce. I think people are nervous that, to put a fully fledged rock album. But I think if there's going to be any artist that's likely to be able to do a crossover and built out a Pat Benatar type of album, she's the most likely contender. And I think she could do it with aplomb. She's got fine vocal range, a very unique tonality that you haven't heard. She's got cut through, and that's what you need. You need a voice that's got cut through over the sonics, and I think she's more than capable of doing a hard rock album.
With her talent, the only thing I wonder about is, would she make something with that kind of simple production instead of that big bombastic production that you hear on her music? I don't know a lot of her songs, but when I hear her songs, it has this production that seems more like it's for dance music. It's very deep and loud and over the top. And the great hard rock albums, like, just for example, the early AC/DC albums right through Back in Black, the production is you can hear every instrument, but it's recorded really well, and it's not bombastic. It puts the focus on the songs and the performances themselves. I wonder how it would work with that production, or would she hook up with a Mutt Lange?
Look, strip back production would be the key. I think she would be perfect. You've hit the nail on it, and it needs somebody young, somebody popular to start a trend. And it needs somebody that's artistically brave and curious. Now, she is certainly got curiosity in the rock genre, but from a production sonic side, needs somebody to put her in that sort of direction. But unfortunately, a lot of the modern pop artists are in control of the bean counters, and R&B pop rules the day, and that's unfortunate, and it's marginalizing rock music. So, but I think for the purposes of this show, she's more than capable. And whether, she's influenced by her dad's record collection or not, I think all power. It's great that she's, doing these collaborations, and she obviously has got a foot in the rock camp. I want to see it. And personally, I'm with you, mate. I would like to see a stripped down rock 4 on the Floor album, like an old Akadaka record, Just right. Power chords.
Yes. I mean, and like as a producer out there now, you got Andy Sneap. Andy Sneap does the Accept albums. He does the Saxon albums. He's done the last few Judas Priest albums, I believe. Wonder if that works. It's not as stripped down as those great albums that Mutt Lange made with AC/DC, or even the albums that AC/DC made with Bandit. Yeah. But I'm wondering if that would work.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's a bit of a loud production, but it's not so over the top.
Yeah. I'll throw one more artist, because I was going to do this as a separate sort of pick, but I think it's a segue. So being a bit cheeky, sorry, mate. Pink, exactly the same.
Okay. Yes. I echo that sentiment.
She's got vocal cut through.
Yes, she does.
She's got the strong image that could easily slot into rock. I mean, she started off very, like her early album, Misunderstood, very much R&B. But as time has evolved, her sound has evolved into something that's more rock orientated, even though it's more foot in the floor pop. I think she's got the vocal cut through that she could easily do a rock album.
I would agree with that. Certainly. I know enough of her stuff that I believe that she could definitely pull that off. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So it just needs bravery.
Right.
And commerce rules the day, because if your record flops, you're out. It's not like the 70s, mate, or the 80s, where you had time, breathing space, where artists could actually sort of build up their sound and catalog. But today it's you're over and out. Look, there's probably some more female artists out there that are on YouTube, but they're the two that come to the fore that are very much high profile. And I think they could easily do it, but whether they will, that's another thing.
Yes. Very good. Both good, very good choices there. Definitely something to think about. I mean, it'd be something I'd really be interested in hearing should they ever go down that road. No doubt.
Yeah. All right, mate. What's your next one?
All right. Well, I'm going to continue to go with older established artists here. And Billy Joel.
Right. Well, he's got a bit of history, hasn't he?
Yes, sir. This is Glass Houses. Thank you, Jim, for giving me this album. So this was actually one of the first 2 cassettes I ever owned. The other one was Styx Paradise Theater. It was 10. But this was his answer to punk and to new wave. Now, I'm not saying there's any punk on here, but there are a lot of good hard rock songs, and not just the singles. You May Be Right, to this day, is an album-oriented rock staple. Wonderful guitar lines. It's one of his most memorable songs. It wasn't the number one hit. The number one hit on here was It's Still Rock and Roll to Me, which was more of a pop song, but a great song nonetheless. But you got a lot of great new wave meets hard rock on here, like Close to the Borderline, like Sometimes a Fantasy, which was a number 36 hit here in the States, but it was a fantastic song. Love it to this day. Even if you go back in his catalog, you had Big Shot. Big Shot is probably it might be his most well-known rock song. And he had other songs that had great rock guitars in them as well. But I think a New Yorker could play piano, great craftsmanship. I believe he played in Attila. I believe they had their sound. I never heard the album, but I believe that sound was more steeped into hard rock. I think Billy Joel, back in the day, I know he hasn't released any new music in over any pop music in actually about 30 years now. The last album he did with pop music was River of Dreams, and then he did the classical album after in 98 or so. I think back in the day, he could have done a hard rock album because he already had to get the band behind him that had the riffs there. Big Shots led by a great riff. Sometimes a fantasy is led by a great riff. Close to the Borderline, great riff. A lot of other tracks, even Matter of Trust off of The Bridge was led by a great guitar line. I think he could have done it over an album.
I would buy that argument a bit more than Elton John, simply that he would leave the piano behind and would grab the microphone and sing over riff type songs.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the pedigree there, and that's a kind of an angry album. It is my favorite Billy Joel. The thing that has marred Billy Joel, in my opinion, is there has been a lot of schmaltz. It's marred both Elton John and Billy Joel, but out of all of his discography, that I think is his best album. It's angry. It's very new wave. And the songwriting is stellar. It really does capture the new wave sound of 1979, 80, and some wonderful sort of spiky type melodies. But he could pull it off, because I don't think he would be. I think he could fit in with the more simplified musicology of hard rock and just sit behind the riffs and just hold the microphone. Whereas Elton, I think, would want to embellish it and would find it a little bit restrictive. So I buy that argument.
Nice. Excellent.
Okay. My next one is Duran Duran.
Oh, I was thinking about them.
Yep. So if you look at look at face value, you think of MTV, you think of the puffy shirts, the pirates, the chasing of the women. You know, it's a lot of imagery, but musically, they had good game.
Oh my God.
And you look at the players. So starting off with Roger Taylor on drums, thunderous drummer.
Mm-hmm.
John Taylor, one of the great bass players. I'm sure, look, I know he comes from the school of chic and funk, but he could play a straight hard rock bass line. Look at Power Station, for example. More about that in a sec. And then you got Andy Taylor. Andy Taylor loves metal. He has waxed lyrical about his life changed where he went to see Black Sabbath supported by Van Halen. So that's probably one of the reasons why he left the band, because he wanted to bring that more hard rock and heavy metal edge to the band. And what Duran Duran could have sounded like was Power Station. And that is a hard rock album. I mean, it's got funk tendencies, but there's a lot of sort of guitar licks that just sound very much of the 80s and in that Van Halen type of wheelhouse. So the only part of it is like thinking about Simon Le Bon and his vocals, because he's got a different crooning style, but, you know, it's just a matter of tailoring the song, pardon the pun, and just allowing his voice to have that necessary cut through over the band. But you've got all the musicians in place. Even Nick Rhodes, you know, he could do the John Lord, you know, the keyboard fills.
The organs,
I could easily imagine they could be capable of doing a hard rock album, but it would have a little bit more possible funk sensibilities. It'd have an eye on the dance floor, but it would have a harder edge that those fans of rock would like. And if you want to hear an example of what it would sound like, well, I'd say the Power Station. But that's my pick, Duran Duran, because I think all the players, they were just damn fine musicians and still are.
Absolutely. Take Andy Taylor's solo hit, Take It Easy. What a great hard rock song right there.
He's got a hard rock heart.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. So that's all you need.
Or the song he wrote for Rod Stewart, or with Rod Stewart, Lost in You. That's a hard rock song.
Yep.
And then even when they came back with the Wedding album, I think by that point, I think they had Warren Cucurullo with them, who played with he played with Frank Zappa. They had a song on there called Too Much Information that had a really heavy guitar line in that, I believe.
Yeah.
So I co-sign on that one. I absolutely believe they could do it. And the musicianship they certainly had. John Taylor. I mean, as someone who used to play bass himself, John Taylor, he was a wonder. I loved his style. Wonderful bass player.
And in metal and hard rock, what's brought up to the fore? What's brought up in the mix? It's the bass, the bottom end.
That's right.
And he would be perfect. It'd just be bubbling along. And you've got Andy Taylor with the guitar histrionics. It'd be perfect. Look, I understand. Maybe they wouldn't be wearing the puffy shirts. They wouldn't be wearing that sort of new romantic garb, but no, certainly I could see that they could transition into that sort of genre of music quite easily.
They could pull off the black leather. They'd still look cool.
Yeah, they could do it. They could do it.
Oh, yeah. No question. I love that one.
An interesting band. There's a lot of people that love their metal but love Duran Duran. So they're a bit of a cross-genre band. A lot of people sort of had whether they classified as a guilty pleasure, but always grooved on Duran Duran.
Yeah, the thing about Duran Duran, I mean, as someone who was a metalhead back in the 80s, I mean, my friends who were practicing musicians back then, they all said none of them ever took a shot at Duran Duran. They said those guys could play.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent
all right.
pick.
So we've picked 3 each. Maybe throw an honourable mention. Have you got an honourable mention?
I certainly do. All right. So a lot of people may know this band for a couple hits, but also being Prince's rival band in the Purple Rain movie. And this one is for our friend Rand Kelly, The Time. And this album is Pandemonium. I say I'm giving a shout out to Rand because Rand loves this album. We talked about this off camera once, and I wholeheartedly agree. I love this album. This was their comeback album after they broke up for a few years after Ice Cream Castle, which gave us the hits Jungle Love and The Bird. This album was from 1990, and here there's still R&B. There's some new jack swing and pop in here, but there's also great guitar songs like Blondie and Skillet. Jesse Johnson was a wicked guitar player, like straight out of the Funkadelic school. I mean, he was a wonderful guitar player, and I think they could have went straight up. I mean, Morris Day had that flamboyance. I mean, he was personality personified. He would have, he was always a fantastic frontman. And I think they could have done it. There was so much talent in there. We had Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. I mean, look at all the great work they did as songwriters and as producers, particularly for Janet Jackson. I think they certainly could have done it. But this is an album that doesn't get enough love these days. And this is the last album they made in 1990. Pandemonium. It had the hit Jerk Out. That was more of a fun R&B song. Great. So many great songs on here. But the guitar chops are here, and I think they could have pulled it off.
Well, I've just changed my pick because I'll do a little segue and just say as an honourable mention, Prince. I think Prince was totally capable of doing a hard rock album. The Hendrix guitar licks, electrifying. look at the Super Bowl performance.
Oh my
That
gosh.
gives an example of him in a live setting where he does these interpretation of songs or his songs, and he just pulls the Hendrix tone out on the guitar, and he's absolutely outworldly. So, and you know, there's flourishes of hard rock and metal all the way through Purple Rain and some of his greatest albums. So I think, again, it might be the case the Elton John, because he's got such an expansive musical palette. Is hard rock a little bit confining? But he certainly had the capability, and he could do it. And who knows? There may be a hard rock album in the vault. There's about so many much unreleased material. There's like multiple versions of albums like that were done by the Revolution,
Yes,
the new power generation, that have never seen the light of day, and hopefully they will. But who knows? There may be another hard rock album or something of that will just prove the point. But thank you for that choice, because that was a little bit of a segue. I was also going to mention Depeche Mode, just one word. Songs of Faith and Devotion really showed that they were getting into an industrial hard rock edge, so they were capable of doing it. And I think the seeds were definitely sown by Violator. So they're another band that could see that they were going in a harder direction and getting away from the total synth sound. So that's a very quick throwaway. Have you got any one word ones that you can just pop in? Or
now, I never heard this artist's early albums, so maybe they're more hard rock edged. I think Rick Springfield could have done it, because there was already a lot of hard rock in his sound. If you listen to Love Is All Right Tonight, that is just a great rock song. I've Done Everything for You. He covers Sammy Hagar. There's a great rock song right there. Affair of the Heart, it was a big hit single, but that was a stone cold rock song up until the choruses. So, and then later on, he was going a little more new wavy and poppy, but I think he could have made a stellar hard rock album all the way through. Definitely say Rick Springfield would have been able to create a great hard rock album.
I agree with you completely. He was in a band in the late 60s, early 70s in Australia called the Zoot.
Yes.
And they did a hard rock version of Eleanor Rigby. Check it out. It's a killer version. It's just total rock riffage. I could easily see Rick Springfield doing a hard rock album on the basis of that band, Zoot, and some of his solo material. Thank you, John. Thank you, John, for doing this show at very short notice. And this has been a really fun chat. Please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. Please tell us your comments. Enjoy reading your comments, so keep that going. And I'd like to see your comments on this particular show. So me and John will be doing a show very soon. See you later, John, and thank you once again.
Thank you, Peter. Have a great night.
Okay, see you. Bye.